Welcome back, hyenas. Now, I don't mean to alarm anybody, but I did want to let you know that I think I may have discovered a supervillain hiding amongst the schizophrenics of Twitter that is apparently trying to spread his ideology through memes. Allow me to introduce you to He Jiankui, a bioengineer out of China who has recently started to go a little bit viral on Twitter because of some posts that he's been making, basically trying to spread the ideology that human bioengineering and editing of human embryos for the benefit of their life is something that should be considered more mainstream, or at the very least, ethical. Now, you guys let me know down in the comments, what aspect of this individual do you think led me to describe him as a supervillain? Is it the fact that his experimentation went so far as to editing actual human embryos and was considered so unethical in the scientific community that he was jailed for 3 years over in China? Or is it the fact that upon being released from jail, he decided to continue to spread his ideology and say that the things that were considered so unethical that would lead him to criminal charges will one day be considered completely normal in the near future? If your answer was he should be jailed again for using Twitter, congratulations, you are the hyena of the day. So I'm scrolling through Twitter and I see a bunch of people making jokes using this image of this Chinese geneticist, biophysicist. He's just a dude in a lab coat, to the best of my knowledge, when I first discovered him. And then I realized that a couple of the tweets that I had been reading are not in fact people making parodies or jokes about this individual. It is actually the man himself tweeting out borderline, I don't know, sometimes it's normal stuff, like in 20 years gene editing in human embryos will be as popular as the iPhone. Like, that's a little bit crazy, but he is on the forefront, the bleeding edge of bioengineering. I guess if that's what he's working towards, maybe this isn't as outlandish as it seems. But then you read more into his tweets, and there's a lot of them, all accompanied by these images of him making no face whatsoever, sometimes flexing on him, that aren't selfies. Somebody is taking these pictures of him. He's going up to like researchers in his lab and going, hey man, I got another banger tweet. I promise it's important to pursuing the advancement of our research. Just take a picture while I do it to him. And then sometimes it's not agreeable. Sometimes it's stuff like gene editing technology has the power to reshape the world. Makes sense? Comma, like nuclear bomb. I don't know. Like, some of the tweets are like general purpose scientific community dude just trying to share his work on the internet. And some of them are evil scientist shit. This sounds like the thing like Mojo Jojo would tweet out. Yo, I'm gonna hit this pose, okay? And then we're gonna caption it that the work that we do in my lab will be as important as the nuclear bomb. I feel like they made an entire movie about why that's a bad comparison to make. I don't think you want to be the founder of that. Tinkering with human embryos will certainly be worth the risk. Now, again, borderline crazy, right? Little bit controversial, but again, I'm not a dude in the scientific field. If you're spending your entire life dedicated to working with bioengineering human embryos, yeah, while some of that work sounds pretty crazy, I would at least hope the dude at the forefront of it was optimistic about the results that he's getting, that one day it will be worth all the work that you're doing. Like, I could see why this could be considered normal in the field that you're in. Human will no longer be controlled by Darwin's evolution. Okay, again, siding a little bit close to evil supervillain. This is Superman's rival in a comic book level shit. Transplanting pig organs into people will become routine one day. One day in the future, you will have the power to customize the pieces of your body and reinvent yourself. Why worry about the work that it takes? You don't need to worry about the past if you have the power to believe in reinventing yourself. That is a quote by Lex Luthor. The really interesting thing about these tweets from Jiankui He is the fact that it depends on you what side of like believability, what side of insanity some of these quotes sit in. Like, a lot of them are sort of like, Yeah, I mean, if you read into bioengineering and take a look at the experiments that they've done, the idea that we'd be able to edit somebody's embryo to change their eye color seems superficial. But the idea that you might be able to eliminate the gene that might have you born with some sort of disease and limit the ability for people to be born with like HIV or autism or something else is like, I mean, that's a pretty crazy idea, but like if it worked out ethically, it's like, yeah, we could just get rid of diseases you could be born with. But then obviously, if you don't believe in editing human embryos for the betterment of mankind whatsoever, you consider all of that to be unethical, then yeah, every single one of these tweets is batshit crazy. I will not do life extension or immortality research secretly for billionaires. Okay, again, I feel like the things that you're saying, the gravitas of what you're speaking to as far as your research is concerned, is a teeny bit offset by these weird fucking selfies you're taking alongside all of them. But like, hey, at least we have a little bit of a peek into the mentality, the morality, the ethics of which this individual is trying to operate. I mean, also, everybody who has created anything for military applications was generally trying to create them without it being developed by billionaires and governments using their military to turn it into a weapon of mass destruction or something to prolong the lives of world leaders and what have you. But at least we know that that's not what he wants. But also, was developing research into becoming immortal on the table? Is that a thing that people have been dumping money into? This is something that could break through in the scientific world? Did we miss a few steps? Obviously, this combination of selfie by Chinese genetic biophysicist alongside borderline batshit crazy quotes has led to a bunch of parody accounts and people making meme and parody edits satirizing it, which I think is exceptionally funny because not only is it stuff that's like a little bit more relatable, but it seems equally crazy to the stuff that this guy has actually been tweeting. We will populate embryos' balls with microplastics to prepare them for real life. Yes, we will. My personal favorite is, we will find a way to make her love you back. There's no shot in hell. Now, obviously, upon reading into this and seeing the hilarious tweets and parodies that people have been making, take a look at some of these behind me, by the way, they're great. I decided to take a look into this individual, and I found that this biophysicist out of China is the same dude who went viral a number of years back under the headline of something to the tune of Chinese genetic physicist develops genetically altered babies. They used the term designer babies, basically under the guise that he had developed some sort of embryo DNA manipulation, bioengineering that would lead to you being able to decide what eye color and other aspects that your baby would be born with by editing the embryo. And just a year or two after that, it was found by a court in China that he and a couple collaborators had forged ethical review documents which had misled doctors into unknowingly implementing some gene-edited embryos into women. So basically, he conducted an experiment without letting anybody know that he was conducting an experiment, and implanted women with an embryo that nobody was under the impression was anything other than normal, but had actually been edited in his lab. The reason that he did this, he gave in a talk later in 2018, was evidently to study the ability to be able to remove the gene that would provide a baby to be born with the HIV virus. Basically, he took donors who had HIV, the father, and then edited the embryos, and unknowingly to the doctors doing it, had them implanted into these women. One of those women gave birth to twins. The other one's information I can't find. I don't know if they even came to the conclusion of whether or not it worked, but he ended up going to jail for 3 years, alongside 2 years and a year and a half for the two collaborators that he had. That's not even the craziest part of this story, by the way. The craziest part is that all of this was done at the Southern University of Science and Technology in Shenzhen, otherwise known as SUSTech. I googled this place because I thought I was being pranked by science.org. No, SUSTech is a real university in China. So obviously there's a lot of layers when it comes to this biophysicist, and it's weird that he would spend his time over the course of like a year or more tweeting out these selfies and these quotes talking about his morality and ethics around the legitimacy of his work, and how one day pig organs and gene editing will be considered as common as the iPhone, when in reality his ethics are very much questionable. His experimentation on live humans and embryos that are being implanted into them without the knowing consent of anybody involved is batshit crazy. And as funny as it is to see these edits of JD Vance style face filters, I hate that that's what we have to call that meme now, by the way. As funny as these are, this entire story is only as interesting as the man behind it. If people were just using any other random dude in a lab coat in order to make jokes about genetic engineering, I mean, it's a slow news week, so I guess it would still be funny, but the fact that it's this individual with this sort of criminal backstory to the work that he's doing, now released from jail, just subsequently shit posting on Twitter with his batshit crazy ideals of what the human future might be like, makes this a much spicier meme than it might seem on the surface. Perhaps one day in the near future we'll be able to genetically manipulate a cat that doesn't pee into your shoes. But until then, thank you so much for watching. If you want to stay up to date on funny internet news, remember to subscribe. A big thank you to the patron scrolling behind me, and I will catch you guys on the next one. Say shpeace, Jojo. Shpeace.